Welcome to part 2 of Love Uncovered, Embracing the Power of Your Goody Box, with special guest, Minister Daria Dillard Stone, and award-winning author and publisher, Valerie Coleman. Our conversation is already in progress.
You want to speak to that, Val?
Yeah, I was going to say another critical aspect of how someone perceives a situation is birth order. You know, the oldest child, like you said, you were the oldest child. The birth order makes a big difference. The oldest child versus the baby. You know, the responsibility versus being coddled. Or the middle child who feels ignored. You know, gender plays a difference. Little boys are taught differently as children as little girls are. Personality type. You know, you could be identical twins and have very differing personalities. So there's a lot that goes into the dynamic of how you perceive and experience. And then your past experiences, you know, whatever you may have dealt with at school that your siblings, maybe you were bullied and your siblings weren't. So now I see this from a bullied person's perspective, you know, so all of those things play into it. And I think it's important when we talk about parenting and we start out talking about relationships, but a lot of who we are as women is formed in our childhood and those relationships from year 0 to 7. The father is supposed to be the daughter's first love and a son's first hero. He is the first protector of the goody box. But if he's not there to protect the goody box, or if he's not there to empower you, to help you understand your value is far more than the body that you reside in, but it's who you are as a person, and the value that you bring to the relationship comes from the inside, then little girls grow up with these daddy issues that they take into these relationships. You talked about triggers earlier. Sometimes abandonment, my daddy wasn't there, and I'm in this relationship with this guy, and then I feel like he's leaving me. You are triggering something that happened with me and my daddy, and I'm coming in pursuit. And so now we become these cyber, you could be a cyber stalker, but a lot of those things that we do are triggered from childhood traumas or childhood issues or childhood memories based on our perspective. So like my sister and I, we remember very differently our childhood. Now I was the oldest. Yeah. We're 4 years apart. She's younger, but she remembers more of the things that happened to us as children. I don't remember. She said, you blocked all of that out. I said, I guess that was my defense mechanism because I don't remember this stuff that you're talking about. That didn't happen. Yes, it did. You don't remember you wore this and you had on that. And I said, I don't remember. I'm glad I don't. You can keep that memory. Because it resonated more with her. But she's a different type of person, you know, and even how we are right brain, left brain, introvert, extrovert, all those things affect how we experience certain situations and dramas, and they affect differently. So both of my sons, same biological father, same biological mother, but they are very different in how they approach the world, their mindset. My youngest son, I call him my baby boy. He gets mad, but he's still my baby boy. Okay, he's 34, my baby boy. About to be 35 on Monday, my baby. He's very analytical. So he's an engineer by degree, and he has all these, you know, masters in engineering. He does all this analytical stuff. He works with numbers all the time. My oldest son, who also has a master's degree, but he's more in social work. He's in the mental health. So he's more right brain dominant. He's very empathetic. So he deals with people, and he loves to make people feel better about themselves. So he's in the mental health arena. My oldest son is more analytical. That's left brain. Same mama, same daddy, same upbringing. But because of how they are and how God wired them to be, they're very different. So their experiences are different. And if we as parents don't understand that, if we're not able to tap into what our child needs, and even the 5 love languages is something I always talk about. If you don't pour into your child with what your child needs, if you are a person who believes in gifts, but your child needs words of affirmation, every time you're giving them a gift, that's nice. They may accept it and appreciate it, but if they need to hear you say you're wonderful, you're godly, I love what you're doing, you look good, you're so smart, mama's so proud of you. If they need to hear that and you steady giving them gifts, they're going to feel empty. And then when they get old enough, they're going to search, right? They're going to search for that. And not that you neglected them, you just neglected to give them what they needed. You gave them what you needed. We have to be very selfless when it comes to parenting and even relationships. I need to give my children what they need, not necessarily what I need. I need to give my husband what he needs. He's a touchy person. I can't walk past that man without him touching some part of my body. Now, and I had to get used to that because I'm not a touchy person. Don't touch. Why are you? Every time I walk past you tapping on something. Why are you always tapping me? But I had to understand that that's his primary love language. He needs that. That makes him feel valued. So I got to get more about touching him on his back and rubbing, you know, and that's important to understand that even as children. We have to give our children what they need as the mother, as the father. That's why God designed it to be a husband and wife. to be two parents because we bring different dynamics to the child. The mother tends to be loving and nurturing and kind and teaching soft skills. The father is the disciplinary, setting things in order, the provider, the protector. And if we, and sometimes you've got women who are trying to play all of those roles, because I know on Father's Day in church, they said all the daddies stood up. I sure stood up because I was a single mama. I'm doing it all. I'm standing up. They looked at me and said, no, I don't have a penis, but I'm still Father's Day. Okay, get over it. I'm standing up on Mother's Day. I'm standing up on Father's Day. I'm standing up on all the days because I'm doing everything. But that doesn't necessarily resonate well with my sons. Like, Mom, you ain't a daddy. Sit down. Well, I'm doing daddy type stuff, and thinking that I'm making a point, but I have to be mindful that my sons are like, you ain't the daddy, and we have to be careful of the things we do, even the little subtle things that we do. I told my son that you are the man of the house. I was a single woman for 12 years, single mom for 12 years. I told him, baby, you the man of the house. He's 10 years old, 19, whatever. So it was his job to make sure the doors were locked, to make sure everybody was safe in the house, make sure the alarm was set. He did all that stuff. By the time my husband came along, my son felt displaced. Well, I thought I was the man of the house. Who is this man and what is my role now? But I put him in that situation thinking I was doing something good. I put him in that situation, and then we had to work through that. But I think we have to be very careful that the words that we use, like you said, words have power. The words that we use and the way that we communicate is typically a direct result of what we're thinking. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So we have to change our thinking so that we can then project better words and change our actions and change our emotions and change our habits. They're all interconnected. So I can't say something, call you out your name, and then tell you how much I love you in the next breath. Who does that?
In evaluating,
remember my second marriage when I was getting ready to get married. I already knew at the age of 40, that's how old I was when I married the second time. It was like I knew what I wanted. I even knew the height. And I actually told God because I felt that I didn't get it right the first time. I learned the hard way. For whatever reason, I was divorced. And divorce to me was like a cancer because it was so common in my family, my grandmother, I had a grandmother that had been married 5 times. My daddy had been married 5 times. My mother had been married 3 times. It was like, I'm going to stay married no matter what, but it didn't work out that way. And today, me and my first husband, who's the father of my 2 kids, 2 daughters, are very good friends, but that's not how it started out. So since I knew what I didn't want and what I did want, I didn't accept nothing less. So when I met Todd and I realized the height, the color, the academic, the personality, the texture of his hair, his nails had to be done. Because my daddy, as much as he was not always a good daddy, he was in my life as an adult. When I became an adult, my daddy was there every day, and he would tell me things that a woman should never accept from a man. And if you do accept it, don't get upset after you accept it 10 times and now you want to change him and go, he's a bad man. No, you should have changed it the first time he did it. So if you're not going to accept it once, don't accept it, but let that man know. He said women oftentimes want us to know what they're thinking. So, and then they compare Peter to William and William to Jonathan. Those were 3 relationships the woman might have been in. So if you do something, you acting like that one I didn't like, Peter. Now you acting like Jonathan. My name is David. So my husband had to remind me of this. And I didn't realize, since I had this regime, this regiment, this resume, if you will, of what you had to be, and he fit the profile physically, externally. Now I got to dig in and see where your mind is, and he used to tell me, he said, baby, he said, look, my name is Todd. I don't know what you've been through, who did what, but I haven't done anything to you. Without saying what I did, I don't know what I did to make him say that, but it hit a core, because in my mind, trying to be secretive with it, I was drilling him. I saw some red flags. So before I do anything, I want to make sure that you ain't acting like. He said, stop comparing me with whoever. My name is Todd. And that's all he would say. I ain't never hurt you. And it broke me down. It made me vulnerable, because I said, what am I doing? He said, I need for you to find out what you're doing. If I tell you what you're doing, then I'm telling you. I need for you to one day find out what you're doing. Then on another note, my kids were gone. I'd been a single woman before I married him for 16 years. Even though I had a very good boyfriend. And so I came home after 3 years, me and him empty in the house. And I come home and he says, baby, he said, how many children in the house? And I'm like, why you keep asking me that? He never would tell me. So I guess by the third year, he stood up. I come in the door and I'm like, honey, why didn't you do, why did it? And honey, why did, and he stood up. He said, Daria, I'm asking you again, how many kids live in this house? And I said, baby, why do you keep asking me that? It's a stupid, and it was his look. But he wanted me to find out what I was doing. I busted out crying. He would make me cry so much about things he had nothing to do with. He said, let's talk about your childhood. I would sit on the floor and look up at him and just pour my heart out. I miss him. Just thinking about how he helped me work through so much that I didn't even know was a problem. He would never say, don't you do this. Don't you talk to me like that. I'm not. He would say, are there any children in the house? Over and over. So finally, I'm like, baby, do I talk to you like like you a child? He said, all the time. He said, but I get it. He said, you've been the boss for a long time. He said, I get it. He said, I can see why you run brothers away. You a booger man. He talked my language. He had all 5 of my languages, but he had some things that he knew only I could sift through. Once I did, he said, now let's go. But he was not going to tell me what was wrong with me, because then that's his perception of me. He wanted me to see it, and he just took time. And once it came out, it was awesome. We was on like popcorn, you know. And you already know him, Karen. I never have been in love like that. And he's been dead 12 years, but he left me a better woman than he found me. And women, I'm telling you now, a lot of times, you stop being so strong. Stop being so freaking tough. He used to call me, he said, just a wet noodle. But you just been overcooked, but you a wet noodle. He said, it's okay to be vulnerable, but I had to be vulnerable with the right man. I had to be the boss and large and in charge for so long. My daughter even told me one day, she was 13, I will never forget this. You never know who's watching you. Kids won't say nothing, but a lot of times their actions speak louder than words. We baking cookies, and I don't know what I did. She said, oh, I can't wait till I get grown like you, Mom. I'm going to be just like you. So it came out of nowhere. We wasn't talking about, but we just baking cookies, all 3 of us in the kitchen. So I looked at her. I said, what part of me? Because I did so many things. I sang. I sold Jaffa. I was a parent teacher, So I said, what part of me do you want to be like? She said, I'm going to be like you. You don't need a man. You don't have to have no man. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, what is she seeing? What am I showing my girl? You got to check out what you're saying. I didn't fuss at her, but I realized I need to nip this in the bud. She's 13, and she's already thinking, I don't need no man. And women, a lot of you're tainting your daughters from finding the right man that's right in front of their face because of your stuff. Mom, how old were you? I said, what was on the after-school movie today? And that's what it was. And I love the after-school movie. See, the movies and the music we listen to, Family Reunion, this love train, We Are Family, you know, what's going on. The music we listened to, it gave us some type of energy to go out and be the best we could be. And if you're going to dance, then dance. But we wasn't grinding, you know. Now, when the song The Dog came out, oh, that was the worst song you could ever play. When I look at things now, but that day, yeah, walking the dog, oh, don't talk about that. And don't talk about when the dog's after the cat. That was when Johnny Taylor, I never forget. We go, ooh, they listen to that nasty song. Donna Summers, Pillow Talk. Ooh, I love to love you, baby. Ooh, ooh.
We can just keep talking all day, but we don't have all day, okay? So I just have a couple more questions I wanted to ask you, and it's right in line with what we were talking about dealing with us, you know, in terms of whether whoever we're dealing with and whatever flaws they have, we have to first look at ourselves. And one of the things I heard that I thought was so profound, and it speaks to what we're talking about, and I'll have one of you or both of you expand on it. It says, it really is talking about confronting the things that we need to confront about ourselves. And it says, the only thing underneath the surface grows roots. And I think that if we continue to not deal with the things underneath our stuff, then it continues to take root. And so when we try to have loving relationships with men, with our families, our friends, we find a hard time trying to do that because there's so much underneath that we're not dealing with.
If you think about a weed, the plant of a weed, some weeds above ground are absolutely beautiful. It's hard sometimes, it's hard to determine what's a weed and what's a plant that I actually want to keep. They grow tall. They can be almost tree-like. They become, and they're beautiful and green and vibrant. Some of them have flowers on them. Yeah. So they look pretty. The problem is when you start talking about weeds, it's what's underground. Once you find out that it's a weed, if you just cut it off at the surface, it's going to grow back. And sometimes it grows back more fervently. Like the Bible says, when it casts out one demon and 7 come back. With the weed, it can sprout now. It can twist and contort and have several different main branches to it. And any professional in the agricultural industry will tell you that to destroy a weed,
away
you have to get to the
without
root.
sharing some
You've
of the
got to get that
fabulous
chemical
things
down there.
that
You
they
got to
have
dig
going
down there. And
on.
if you leave
When
one
we
little
talk about
piece, a
success
residual
and women
residue piece,
really
it's going to grow
understanding
back
their
because weeds are
value and their
resilient.
purpose and what God has in store for them, they really hit the mark. So I'm going to let each one of these wonderful ladies share just a little bit about who they are and what they have going on and how to stay in contact with them. Ms. Val, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Karen. My name is Valerie J. Coleman, and I serve women who struggle to have a fulfilling relationship by revealing the ForbiddenBoxBook.com, and that's Goody, Goody, the GoodyBoxBook.com. And what I do is share real relationship advice that I got from men to help women make better choices. It's relationship advice that your father didn't tell you and your mother didn't know.
Hi, my name is Daria Dillard Stone, the servant. I am a minister, a international motivational speaker, and also a parent advocate consultant. I am always the founder of Sharing Ministries, LLC, which was launched because of grief, the grief of my husband. But next year will be 10 years that this website started, and it has launched something else. Then what I do now is I actually help women especially find themselves personally and professionally so that they can reach their full potential and not depend on outside resources that are negative or detrimental to them. I help women face who they are and become who God wants them to be. So with that said, my website is www.sharing, SHARING-ministries, MINISTRIES.com. And I can be also located on Facebook and also on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Daria Dillard Stone, the servant, and I look forward to servicing you, to sharing what God has given me so you'll have something to put in your toolbox of life and get out of what you have got yourself into by being a light where you shine. Remember, because I care, I share.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Through My Lens, a 15-minute perspective of purposeful and powerful living strategies. I'm your host, Karen Jackson. And until next time, remember to keep rising and shining as we live in purpose, with purpose, and on purpose. God bless.